Om Shri Sadgurave Namah. The invocation. I bow down at the holy lotus feet of true Guru, whose words of wisdom are like mighty sunbeams to dispel the darkness of ignorance. Guru, the beneficence personified, takes the disciple to meet the Supreme Being. I offer my humblest obeisance again and again at his holy lotus feet. Blessed is true Guru, whose glory is indescribable in words. Whatever little I could or would say is only because of his compassionate grace. Hello, viewers. Welcome to the fourth episode of the talk on Santmat Satsang. This time it got slightly delayed. Actually, I intend to post one talk every week, but somehow because of some preoccupations, it got delayed by a couple of days. So welcome all of you, and let us get back to our talk. As usual, we'll first have a brief recapitulation of whatever we have discussed in the previous, that is the third session, and then we'll go on to continue the same for this session. So let me begin with sharing my presentation. Yes. Today, as my background, you can see the scene which is visible at my back. It is from the headquarters of Santmat, which is located at Maharshi Mehi Ashram, Kuppaghat, Bhagalpur, Bihar, India. And the monument that you see at my back, this is the Samadhi where his ashes or mortal remains are kept. And there is a bridge has been constructed to say lead to that building, and a beautiful horticultural garden has been brought up, which presents a lovely and enchanting, captivating ambience to the structure. So let us do a recap of whatever we had done in the previous talk. We had seen that infinity could be one only, non-dual, and it has to be an indivisible whole. That is, it is not possible to divide the infinite into pieces or to break it into a number of parts. Like say, as you can see in this diagram, the way we can break up a structure into number of pieces, the same is not possible to achieve with what is infinite. Because as you can see, the moment we can effect creation of pieces, then it leaves gaps between the two pieces. Even if they are kept adjacent to each other, how can they be called two pieces unless and until there is a line of break between them? So now the question is that what lies in this gap, or wherever the line of separation is, however minute or subtle or fine it could be, but there has to be something here, some gap, whatsoever minute, it has to be there. So the question arises, what will be there at the gap, in the gap? And if something is there, then that will be a predecessor of this, which we have broken into pieces. So therefore, it is not possible, because that which precedes everything else is and can be the only infinite. So therefore, it cannot be divided. That we had seen, and infinity can be one only. Second thing, that we cannot ascertain or find beginning point of that which is infinite, because beginning means that we have found its limits, or its boundaries in terms of time or space. The body, a particular body which is enlivened by a conscious current, when it takes on, say, it begins its existence, then that is known as birth. And when it meets with its demise, that is when that consciousness leaves it, then that is known as its death time. So similarly, I say anything which is finite will be having a beginning and an end. But that which is truly infinite cannot be, say, with a beginning or an end. We had also seen that an infinity has to be all pervasive. That is, whatever, anything or anybody, what, whatever exists anywhere, infinite or infinity, must pervade all of them, all of this. So therefore, it has to be all pervading, because if even the smallest nook or corner or interstice is left where that infinity is not present, we can find out its limits. So therefore, it has to be all pervasive. And we had also seen that the very concept of pervasiveness, the connotation of pervasiveness, it exists, it is valid only so long as there is something to be pervaded. So where the whole creation, all the universes at different levels of existence, like say gross, astral, causal, supracausal, etc., etc. So long as we have any type of creation that is there, then the infinity or the God will be pervading through each of them. And when everything comes to an end, as it has to, then what is left is He and He alone, and there is nothing else which could be pervaded, and therefore the very sense or essence of pervasiveness is lost. So therefore, God has been referred to in scriptures as all pervading, sarva vyapak, and also beyond pervasiveness. So all this we had seen in the previous talk. We just tried to repeat them as in a concise and short way, and then we move on to some new points associated with the infinity in part 4. This point I had intended to cover in the previous talk only, but that could not be possible. So we'll try to see it today. What is said here, that that which is infinite, it must be the largest possible. That is, it must be larger than the largest that could be found, that could exist. Because however large anything could be, say a particular stellar body or a universe, that which is infinite must transcend it. While pervading all through it, it must go beyond its boundaries. Only then it will be infinite. So therefore, however large, gigantic anything could be, infinity has to be even greater than that. and it has to be present everywhere, permeate all through whatever is there. So therefore it is said to be omnipresent also, and it is larger than the largest. Larger than the largest, it is say in Sanskrit scriptures, they call it as say Mahato Mahiyan. Mahato Mahiyan. That is, Mahato means greater or larger, larger than the Mahiyan, which is large. That is, anything, however large it could be, the infinity or the God or the Ishvara is even larger than the largest possible. So it is of the largest extent if we could use the term. But at the same time, what is baffling, what may sound puzzling, is that infinity has to be the tiniest, the subtlest, or the finest. That is, it must be tinier or subtler or finer than the tiniest, subtlest possible entity that could be found anywhere in the universe or universes around us. Why so? Because if it is not smaller than the smallest, then how it will pervade through that, how it will permeate, penetrate through that, and be indwelling that tiniest entity. Like, say, we use the term, say, soil. So, if I think this color. Okay, so what I wanted to say is that suppose we have soil. Now, soil is comparatively grosser in comparison to water, and therefore water easily pervades the soil. If there is rainfall, it soaks through, it permeates through different layers of soils. Why it is able to do so? Because water is finer or subtler than the soil. Similarly, air permeates water, gases are present in water. So, because gases are even subtler or finer than water. So, that which has to be everywhere, infinity must be present all round. How it could be present everywhere unless and until it is tinier than the tiniest? Suppose we are talking of electrons or protons or neutrons or the gaps that exist between those electrons or protons or the nucleus, or even say, we'll come to that a bit later, say in our subsequent talks, that nowadays we know that even these electrons or neutrons or protons are made up of, say, even finer particles called quarks. Now, that which is infinity must be permeating those quarks also. It must be what becomes very, very difficult to understand, that the space as we know it is the finest, because we can neither touch it nor smell it nor say feel its presence in any way by using our sensory perceptors, by using our sense organs. But still we know that space is very much there, empty space, and that infinity, how fine it would be that it has to permeate through the space also. So here our intellect, it just ceases to work, that how could something be even finer than the space, even finer than the mind, than the intellect? Everything that we could perceive must be relatively grosser in comparison to that infinity, so that everything could be pervaded, permeated by that infinity. So that which can be present which could permeate electrons also, protons also, quarks also, space also, how subtle it would have to be. So therefore, in order for something to be omnipresent, okay, all pervading, it has to be greatest in extent so far as its expanse is considered, but at the same time it has to be tinier than the tiniest possible, and that has been referred to in our say Sanskrit scriptures as anoraniyam. Anoraniyam. Anu means very small. Okay. Anu is further broken up into Parmanu, that which is the smallest one. And that infinity or the Ishvara has to be pervading even this Anuj and Parmanus. That is, it has to be smaller than the smallest. So it is referred to as Mahato Mahiyan and Anorani. It is larger than the largest, and at the same time it is having the opposite property also, that is it must be subtler than the subtlest or tinier than the tiniest. I hope I have been say able to explain this uh, attribute of the infinity. Then we move on to the next property. All these things come into picture only when we agree on the existence of one infinite being, at least to begin with on an intellectual level. When we start meditating as taught by sages, sons, then someday we'll be able to experience, know that infinite being in our own direct experience. But till we are capable of being there, in the attaining to that state, we have to begin with this hypothesis. And if the moment we believe in the existence of an infinite being, then all these attributes come to be very naturally and logically associated with such a being. So, what is the next property or attribute? That an infinite being must be shapeless or formless. That is, it must not be, no shape could be ascribed to it. And that is known as in Sanskrit as Nirakara. That is Nihjod Akar. Akar means shape or form, and Ni means not or without. So that infinite being is without a form or shape. Why so? The question would be. Then the answer is that how do we assign a particular shape to anything? We say that something is triangular in shape, something is rectangular in shape, something is square, polygon, octagon, etc. How do we identify or assign or ascribe shapes to different bodies? The answer would be that shape could be given, associated only after we have identified the limits, only after we have seen the perimeter of that particular being. Only then we could say with certainty that yes, it is of this shape. Like say, yes. I hope you could see this. So what we are seeing, there are different types of shapes. How we say that it is triangular? We could say, make this statement that this is a triangular shape only after we have been, say, sure of its boundaries, its perimeter, and if its, say, periphery moves in a particular fashion, it follows a particular outline or geometry, then we say this is triangular, or this is rectangular, or this is circular, or this is having, say, a cut shape, or say cylindrical, say polygon, say curved arrow. Not only that, even if it has got an irregular shape, so something is having not a regular shape. It is having, say, an irregular shape which does not coincide with, which does not match with any of the regular geometric shapes. Even that statement could be made only after we have seen its boundaries. So unless and until we are sure of its boundaries, its limits, no shape could be ascribed, no shape whatever, no form could be given. So that which is infinite does not have any boundaries. If we try to say, okay, it is circular, so we go on, start from center and go on moving in any direction we wish to, and we will never be able to find its end. So how do we know what is its shape? It cannot have any shape because its boundaries don't exist. So that which is unlimited must be shapeless or formless, because what form or what shape would ascribe to something whose limits we ourselves have not seen and will never be able to see? So therefore, infinite being or the God is said to be nirakara, or without a shape, without a form, shapeless or formless being. Then the next characteristic of an infinite being is this: it has to be soundless also. Okay, that is how it has been referred. It has to be beyond name or sound. Name also, in order to take some name, we have to make some sound. So soundless infinity should be. How that could be said? Think that how something could be said to be soundless. Then the question would be that what is sound, or how sound is produced? How sound is produced? We know that for any sound to be produced, it takes vibration. Unless and until a vibration is there, a pulsation is there, a movement is there, sound can never be produced, because every sound has got its own frequency, higher or smaller. Okay, it could be an audible sound or it could be inaudible sound. Audible sounds have got a particular range of frequency. For normal, ordinary human beings, it is say from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. That is, it completes 1 hertz means completion of one oscillation in 1 second. One cycle is completed in 1 second. So if something has 20 hertz frequency, it means that it could complete 20 such oscillations per second. And even if it makes one oscillation per second or zero point 0.1 oscillation per second, it must result in production of sound. Science would approve that, corroborate that. It could be seen by experimentations also. The sound could be so feeble, of so less frequency, that our human ears may not be able to sense that, to detect the presence of such a sound. But science has proved that sounds do exist which are not detectable by human beings, but various other animals, birds, or insects are capable of doing that. So normal human beings audible sound range is 20 to 20 kilohertz. And if something starts oscillating, vibrating at more than 20 kilohertz, if we leave exceptions, because it is said that in some exceptional cases, humans could detect sounds up to 30 kilohertz, 30,000 hertz. But beyond that, it is beyond our range, the range of our ears of flesh. But we know that such higher frequency sounds, bats or horses or dogs could detect. And if the frequency rate at which anything vibrates, it falls below 20 hertz, again it becomes inaudible or undetectable by human ears. But it exists, and it has been seen that animals like elephants, etc., they emit very low frequency sounds which are detected by their mates, by their friends, several kilometers apart, far away. So, what is sound? Sound presupposes vibration. We cannot produce a vibration that does not have a sound, and we can never have a sound which is not, say, accompanied by a vibration. Now, where had we started with? That an infinite being must be soundless. How something would be soundless? Sound presupposes vibration. And for vibration, what we require, if something has to isolate, say oscillate, if something has to move in any direction, upward, downward, left, right, east, west, in any direction, if something requires to move, to oscillate, then what is necessary, that there must be empty space around which, so that it could move. Okay. If we say sit in a place which is completely packed, then what do we say figuratively? That the house, the particular house was so packed that one couldn't move his hand or feet. Why so? Because there are so many human beings that very little gap is left in between to allow, or the gap available is too little to allow movement of hands or feet. So in such cases, we say similarly, now take it to literal levels, that any sound of whether the lowest frequency or the highest frequency, it will be produced only if vibration is allowed. And for vibration to be allowed, as you can see, okay, vibrations could be of different types which could produce sounds. We have vibrations inside us also, and vibration fills the whole space. Vibration or sounds, its sound is said to be the characteristic of space. So it is, you can say, a sea or ocean of vibrations all around. Anything that we see is actually result of vibration. Now, vibration can be possible only if there is empty. If somebody, if something wants to move, then it could do so only if sufficient, if some space around it is available so that it could move. But we are talking of infinity. We have seen that it is larger than the largest, and it is smaller, tinier, subtler than the subtlest. That is, there is no space whatsoever which is not filled by infinity. So it is the densest thing that we could think of, that we could conceptualize. It is so dense that it itself is present everywhere. It fills everything, every place. Now there is nothing beyond it. There is nothing around it, because there is no round of it. We cannot go beyond it. So if there is no gap whatsoever in the infinity, then in which direction and how it could move? And if it cannot move, it is so densely packed, it is so densely present everywhere, that there is simply no space for it to move in any direction whatsoever. And if the movement does not take place, then how would sound be produced? So therefore, it is said to be, infinity is said to be soundless. So it is nameless, as well as it is soundless. It is formless as well as it is soundless. In order to see any form, we require light. So form and light, they are associated. In absence of light, form does not have any meaning. And name or sound, it will be there only when vibration is allowed, permissible. If vibration is impossible, then there could not be name or sound. And therefore, that infinity has been said to be beyond name or sound and form or light. And it is called as, in scriptures, as Nama Rupa Tita Satta. Atit means beyond. Nam means name or sound, and Roop means form or shape. So Atit means beyond. It is beyond Nam, that is name or sound or word, and it is also beyond Roop, that is any kind of form or shape. So therefore, the infinity, that is God or Ishvara, it has been described as beyond all names and forms. It is nameless and formless entity, and therefore it has to be still or motionless or quiet or peaceful. Now, when we talk of motion, okay, oscillation, movement, then it does not apply only to our bodies or things that we see in the universe. We have got minds also, and mind also moves. What do we mean? What do we mean when we say that mind is moving, or mind is, you can say, restive, or mind is say restless? It means that it is occupied by a number of thoughts. Waves of thoughts, one after another, keep rising and falling, and mind is busy, say, in all those kinds of thoughts. It does not sit idle even for a moment. If we try to sit, the power of mind is realized when we sit in meditation and try to meditate with a still mind. Then we find how difficult it is to contain, to subjugate this mind. One thought after another, it captures, or you can say it takes over us and takes us away from the target we had decided for ourselves. So mind is also moving in, say, one thought after another, one thought after another. The true motionlessness state, state of stillness, or state of motionlessness, or state of quietude, or this state of perfect absolute peace, comes when everything becomes silent. That is, we become one with the state of infinitude. When we identify, we merge to become one with that infinity, then we also become motionless. And if you remember the very first episode that we had started with, while defining Santmat, what we had seen that Santmat, mat means views, opinions, teachings, ways, okay, of Sant. And who is a Sant? One who has, say, become one, who has experientially seen or perceived that infinite, that say, eternal being, eternal entity. And one axiomatic truth is that the one who reaches, okay, who attains to that infinite being, to that perfect being, it also becomes the same. We'll see that we'll develop all these context, say, concepts slowly. So this is just the beginning of this. So who is a true Sant? So we can say that complete silence or complete motionlessness or complete stillness or quietude is just another name of infinity or God. And therefore, Maharshi Mehi Paramhansji says, while defining a Sant, he says that who is a Sant? So he is the one who has acquired the state of quietude. True peace, silence is called a Sant, and views or teachings or the wisdom of such a Sant is referred to as Santmat. So we have seen a few more properties or attributes of infinite being. So we have to see a few more of them before we could move on to our next topic. That is, what would happen if such an infinite being, such an infinitude is not as attained, or in other words, why we must worship him. All this we are going to discuss in the sessions to come. Uh, Today we tried to see a few attributes. I hope I have been able to explain those. I have tried, say, to the best of my limited abilities with the compassionate grace of uh, Guru. And I hope that I have been able to drive home the points I intended to. In case you find there are some clarifications required, explanations needed, then you are always welcome. I request you to put your say, queries in the comment box. So soon we'll meet again in another episode. Thank you very much for being here, for listening, for encouraging. Thank you very much. Radhaswami, Jai Guru, Wahe Guru, Satyaram Sa, Namaste.